what I suspect is about to happen is that the Cartesian crisis, which I've described many times, the Cartesian crisis is the state in which your certainty over what's taking place is low quality, right? Did COVID come from the wild? Did it come from a lab? Are the vaccines safe and effective? Are they highly dangerous gene therapies that have been disguised as vaccines to get you to take them? You don't know what to believe across many different topics. And this is largely downstream of the fact that much of what we come to understand about the world is now intermediated by screens and authority. Some authority comes up with some conclusion. You are fed that conclusion through some screen. You don't necessarily know what you're seeing. Are we a planet that is regularly being visited by aliens? Or are we a planet in which some powerful group or groups would like us to think that that's what's going on? We don't know. So we have to hold both possibilities open. And the problem is that for each one of these things, you are effectively you are doubling the number of universes you live in, right? So you've got the Kennedy assassination was a coup versus the Kennedy assassination was a tragedy that left democracy intact. That describes two universes. In both of those universes, you have a question about whether or not aliens regularly visit the Earth or somebody wants you to think so, but it's a psyop. Okay, so that's 4 universes. Each time you have one of these unresolved questions of major import, it doubles the number of universes that you have to keep alive so that you can plot your course. If it turns out that it was a coup, but the aliens are real, then what do I do, right? Now, the punchline here is that AI is about, within the next year or so, going to be capable of producing compelling video evidence that will not be detectable. It's getting better all the time. It's already sufficient that, even an animal behaviorist like you or me will sometimes see a video of a creature that we don't know, and it's a little hard to know whether or not that's a real creature. I would say I'm at about 4 in 5 examples. I can usually spot it, but at 4 in 5 is not as good as I would like it. Mm-hmm. And within a year, maybe it'll be 1 in 5 that I'll be able to be sure. At some point, 2 years down the road, I won't be able to be sure at all because the AI will be refined enough to know what a plausible creature looks like, and it will be able to therefore create creatures that if you don't actually have experience with them, you wouldn't know one way or the other. So, point is, that is going to create, first, a radical increase in the rate of proliferation of cognitive universes that we are forced to keep alive. And I suspect that the immediate consequence of that is going to be paralysis. That the number of different combinations of possibilities where you cannot resolve, you cannot get closure and say, I think I live in this world, and so I'm going to ignore all of those possibilities over there and go forward as if this is true. You're basically going to become agnostic about just about everything. And so in this mental multiverse, you will maybe be able to avoid embarrassment by not putting your weight on any of the ice, but you can't accomplish anything in that state. And that's what I'm concerned about, that we are going to be collectively put into a circumstance where everybody will be afraid to assume enough about the world to actually be capable of acting rationally towards it. And that's a very frightening prospect.
Yeah, it is. It's terrifying. And it does point to the need for actual physical interactions with the world and with people, and to work hard to decrease the percentage of the interactions that you have that are mitigated by screens, that could be mitigated by AI, whether or not you know it. That when you are in the physical presence of another organism, be it human or otherwise, that is doing something, at least now, that is not and your sensory biases exist, and you and I could be watching the same thing and see something different, but what we saw was real if it was, a fox on the ground doing something, and it is not mitigated by AI, whereas nothing coming through the screens at this point. And you and I are having this conversation. Jen's in the next room. The three of us know that we're here doing this. Our dog's on the floor behind us, but none of the tens of thousands of people who will listen to or watch this can know with 100% assurance that you and I are actually here doing the thing that we're claiming to do.
Right. Although in this case, there's a lot. This is something of which you can't be as confident as the two of us are here, but you can be pretty confident because the number of things that would have to be true for us not to be real is spectacular. But this is going to get less and less true over time.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. One of the clear remedies here is in-person meeting, so that at the point that people's confidence in factual material craters, that you at least have somewhere to go to where something doesn't need to be established, right? That you know who the other people in the room are, you know something about how they think, and maybe collectively you can bootstrap your way out of it. I do think this is one of the reasons that our podcast became so popular at the point that you had us take our private discussions about COVID online, is that I think everybody was suddenly catapulted into a world of total uncertainty about almost everything, and watching people who, frankly, I think would have been kind of hard to fake.
That's us.
Yeah. Reason through things was like an anchor point, right? And it is, in fact, one of the things that people tell us over and over again when people who we don't know come up to us, you kept us grounded during COVID, right? They often say you kept us sane. And I think there was just something about that doesn't look fake. And
we're not pretending to be experts. We're trying to figure it out.
Right.
Just like all of you are. And we bring a particular evolutionary toolkit that most people don't have, but we'd love for everyone to have it. And we bring particular experiences that happen to mean that we know stuff about science funding and bats and, and such that and public health that the so-called experts probably didn't see coming.
Yep. So in-person is going to be an absolute key given what's coming. The other thing I feel a little bit strange about saying from our starting point, but I wonder, the following thing is true. Amongst the people who we now know well, the people who figured out how to think their way through COVID and found each other and became the movement of COVID dissidents, there is a high degree of religious faith.
There is.
It's interesting. And I always took that to imply that there's something about the courage that one gets from thinking, well, there's only so much they can do to me down here on earth, but this matters in some context they can't do anything about. If you have that faith, it probably emboldens you to face down what's frankly otherwise very frightening forms of coercion. So that's what I always took to be the reason that we see so much religious faith in the COVID dissident community. But I'm wondering also if belief in some higher power narrative does not also provide you an anchor point that doesn't change irrespective of how murky the evidence gets. In fact, specifically because it is not an evidentiary question, right?
Yep.
You inherit a belief in something, or you adopt a belief in something, and that something is, by its very design, impervious to proof.
Yep.
And therefore, as the world of certainty collapses around you, it still leaves you something in which you can be certain, and not something arbitrary, right? If you made up your own God and maintained a belief in it, it wouldn't be useful. In fact, it would mislead you as often as not. But if you take something that has been proven out over the course of thousands of years, then it at least retains some kind of reliable currency. It has a truth value that is maybe not measured in its description of the universe, but it is measured in its utility over very long periods of time.
Yeah, it's tethered to humanity's past, such that not only has it therefore literally stood the test of time, but it has been with real human beings for generation after generation after generation across not just time but also space. And so, I mean, there's both a like, therefore there is reality and value there, but there's the question of, oh my goodness, I don't even know if what we're seeing are real people. Like, well, you know that this thing that you have faith in has been believed by real people whom you will never met because they are in the past, whom you will never meet because they are in the past, but they were real. Of that you can be sure. And there is value there that is unchanging.
Yes, and you can imagine at the point that the mental multiverse crisis is at a fever pitch, right? Where you discover some fundamental elements of what you assume to be correct are incorrect, and you're now trying to refactor everything based on, if I'm 3 universes over from the one I thought I lived in, how does that change the combinatorics of all of the various other things that I'm uncertain about? You can imagine being in that state, and frankly, you and I are non-believing members of this dissident community. I think we're kind of structured to deal with that uncertainty and find a different way through it. But you could imagine that for almost anybody, that having something that you don't have to go back and rethink would be, well, it'd be a godsend. So anyway, I don't know. Well, I hope I don't know where we're headed, because my suspicion about where we're headed is that it's not going to be pretty, and it's sooner rather than later. But I do think it is useful that there are at least 2 pieces of concrete advice that come from this preview of where we're headed. One of them is meet people in person, and the other is consider embracing belief systems that have some timeless value, because everything else is going to get pretty murky pretty fast.
Yeah.